Today I'm going to show you how to make soaked tortillas. We make these quite often in our home. And why make soaked tortillas instead of normal tortillas, you may ask? Well, that's because we leave the dough in its wet state, having used a probiotic dairy substance within the dough, and it helps break apart the gluten. It helps break down the gluten, it helps break down the phytic acid, and so it becomes a more nutrient-rich and more easily digestible tortilla. So, and I just feel like the texture is just so lovely after it's soaked and we've made them. I like it a lot better than if we haven't soaked them. So this is what you're going to need. You'll need 2 cubes of butter. I've just diced mine up a bit because they're not quite as soft as I need them to be. So 2 cubes of softened butter, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 2 teaspoons of sea salt, 3/4 a cup of yogurt, 3 cups of water, and you'll need 8 cups of flour. I already put my flour in the mixing bowl. So to start, I'm just going to put the 1 teaspoon baking powder in with the flour and mix it around a little bit. Okay, good enough. Now I'm going to place the butter in the flour, and I'm going to add the yogurt in there as well. And I'm going to mix that up. Okay, that's good enough. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the 2 teaspoons of salt into my water and stir that up. Okay, and I'm going to add the water to my flour mixture. Okay, so I've used my 9.5 cups of flour, and I had to use a little bit of extra flour to create the thickness that I want. And this is what my dough looks like. It's a fairly soft dough. When I first started making tortillas, I thought tortillas had to be a really dense dough, and or made from a really dense dough, and the tortillas did not turn out. They got really crisp, they were really hard, they wouldn't roll. So the key to making some really delicious tortillas is not only making it the soaked method, but also just keeping the dough nice and soft. Not so soft that it sticks to your fingers, but soft enough that it's quite pliable and just soft in your hand. So now we're going to transfer this dough over to the large bowl. And I'm going to cover it with saran wrap so it doesn't dry out. And you might have noticed I didn't allow the mixer to mix the dough for long periods of time. I don't think it would really make a difference, but it isn't necessary. Just mix it enough until the dough is nice and mixed, and then you're going to place it in your bowl, cover it, and let it sit like that for 12 hours, even up to 24 hours. I usually make my dough at night and just let it sit throughout the night, and then we make the tortillas in the morning. Or, of course, you can choose to make the dough, prepare the dough in the morning, and then you'll be making tortillas that night, maybe for dinner time. So I'm just going to let this sit now for the next 12 hours. It's morning right now, which is when I made this, so I'm going to be rolling these out tonight, and I'll show you how I do that in just a minute. Alright, so my tortilla dough has soaked for over 12 hours. It's actually been about 19 hours for this dough. And now we're just going to flatten them out and turn them into tortillas. But you'll notice that after it's soaked, the top of it turns kind of a darker color, not very pretty color. but that's only the very, very top layer. As you can see, it's a normal color underneath it. So what you'll need, and you can pick that off if you want to or cut it off, but it really isn't a big deal. I always just mix it in with the dough, so it's not a big deal. What you'll want right now is your dough and a spatula and a rolling pin. I have two here because mine's kind of sticky. I don't know what's going on with it, so I'm using my daughter's little rolling pin. Hey, it works, so I'm going to use it. And then you'll also want either a pan that you placed on the oven and set to a medium-high heat, or one of these electric flat pans. I like to use this because I can make two at a time. So what I'm going to do is just break off a piece of the dough that's about the size of dough you would use to make a roll. And I'm going to roll it out nice and flat. One of the mistakes that I made when I first started making these tortillas was that I thought I had to make it super thin, and that just creates a really kind of crispy tortilla, and you don't want that. So I'm just rolling it out into a nice circle, not way super thin, thin enough that it'll lay flat. I'm going to let that cook and brown a little bit on each side. And don't worry about those dark areas, it's not even a big deal. It's not going to be like that on every one of the tortillas you make. And mine's a little bit darker than normal because I let it sit even longer than normal. And I'm just going to do that until I run out of dough. I'm going to get this one ready while those cook. Okay, and I forgot, you also want a plate, because when you're flipping these and they turn brown, you want to set on something, so you need a plate as well. But as you can see, this one's starting to turn golden on the bottom, and so I'm going to turn it around. And I'm going to let the other side become a little bit browned. You don't want to overcook them, because then they just kind of dry up and they don't roll right. You just want to wait until it just barely starts to turn brown on each side, and then you flip it. Okay, so they've browned, slightly browned on the other side. And so now I'm just going to move them onto my plate and make more. And I'm just going to do that until I've completely finished off all of the dough. One nice thing about having this dough be nice and soft is that it doesn't take a lot of work to roll out. Yeah, when I was making that dough in the beginning, and I thought that dough had to be really hard and tough, it was a huge workout. And it took such a long time. It was so much work. It's not worth it. They're delicious now. One thing that I do as I cook the tortillas is I kind of flip the first few, maybe 2 or 3, every now and then. Because they're still warm, they produce that moisture. And I don't want the bottom ones to get kind of soggy, so I just kind of flip them around every now and then, just the ones that are on top. Alright, so I cooked all of the tortillas, and I am just going to let them cool down. Once they've cooled down, I'm going to place them in a gallon Ziploc bag. It'll probably take 2 gallon Ziploc bags for these, so I'll put half in one and half in the other. And then I'll keep it in the fridge for about a week and a half. That's maybe up to 2 weeks. I have one friend who I've made these for before, and she froze hers and said that they were just fine when they thawed out, so I don't know, you can try that too. I've never tried it before. But this amount of dough that I had made 24 tortillas. My kids have snitched some of them, and so I don't have as many right here. But I've already made some quesadillas. They're perfect for everything. They just roll up nicely, just like tortillas would. They're a little bit thicker than normal tortillas are, so these are more filling than store-bought tortillas are. So they're definitely worth trying to make. They're delicious. My kids absolutely love them. I love them, and I think you're going to love them too. So have fun with that, and if you have any questions or anything, just let me know either through my blog or through my YouTube channel. I'll talk to you later. Bye!